Welcome to Off Topic, but On Point. I'm Odette de Beer, and here we embrace the unscripted, the unconventional, and dare I say it, the unexpected. Because sometimes the best breakthroughs happen when you go off topic. Each episode, we dive into business, leadership, and life, exploring the moments that challenge us, shape us, and push us forward. So, whether we're tackling entrepreneurship, collaboration, mindset, or even navigating resistance, one thing's for sure, we'll always bring it back to what matters. So, get ready for candid perspectives, thoughtful insights that will keep you engaged, inspired, and maybe a little bit uncomfortable in the best possible way. Welcome to another episode. And I have actually decided to dub this series Becoming, because every conversation, which has been completely off topic but totally on point, has been about becoming, where we explore the transformation, the growth, and the grit behind becoming all that we were created to be. I'm your host, Odette de Beer, and today's conversation is one that stirs the soul and shapes our vision. We're talking about becoming the builders of something eternal, or becoming builders of legacy instead of hype. We live in a society that is obsessed with quick wins. We spoke about it in one of our podcasts. We want microwave miracles and microwave businesses. We want the viral moment, the next milestone. And the reality is that immediate return doesn't last. So the question is, what does it look like to build something that outlives us? And now we're starting to talk about legacy. What does it mean to build for the long game, for impact and for kingdom purpose? As usual, I'm joined today by Pastor Christo and Dr. Janine, and the two of them are probably the most interesting people I know. We have very different perspectives, but also very similar perspectives. You'll hear that when we talk, we say pretty much the same thing, just in different ways. It's not good like because we were in collusion behind the scenes. It's just great minds think alike. This is not a fools never differ kind of situation. This is definitely a great mind situation. So legacy is something that we don't stumble into. It's something that we choose and we have to construct it brick by brick. It's about building. If you think about when you were a kid, you used Lego blocks. So it's about building decision by decision, action by action, day by actually everything we do results in some sort of legacy. The question is it a good one? Pastor P, you often talk about the eternal nature of purpose and calling in a world that celebrates short-term success. I'd love your take on what does it mean to build for eternity, not just success.
And that's a loaded question, Odette. Thank you for being me right on the spot. I think it's first of all, when I think about eternity and the eternity perspective, it's to definitely zoom out. Not about me, it's about people around me. It's about, what I will build that will last. Not going to last on the earth, it's going to last forever. There's a scripture that says you should store up earth, but rather, store up treasure in heaven. And so, what would that look like? And so for me, it's like, all right, who am I taking with me? What do I want to build in people more than what I want to be seen or be seen for? And so how I would probably describe that as, first of all, is to say you got to give more than you take. In this life, it's about giving more than what you take. I would say it's about looking in a lot more than it is to judge on the outside. It's that internal reflection. It's like, okay, am I in line with where I'm going? And then, thirdly, it would be to lead with compassion. I don't know what other people are going through. And what would help them, once again, in the long run. So I want to just say again, it's about zooming out for me, looking at it from that perspective, from eternity's perspective. There's an interesting video that my wife shared with me with regards to raising kids. And this person says that, when your child is really getting up your nerves and you're like, had it, they don't want to stop, banging on the wall or doing something that irritates you. They say, just pause for one moment, think that you are 70 years old and you will never see your kid again, and you can come back to that very moment and only see them one more time, how will you respond? And I'm not saying that we should think about never seeing our kids again, but just that framework, like, puts it into perspective. The fact that the child is irritating me, I had a tough day at work. In that moment, it's frustrating. But if you put it in perspective and into eternity perspective, like, there's a different way that we can approach this. Lastly, I would probably say this as well, and I've really worked hard on this, is to reframe my definition of success. And success is not short term. Success for me, I think John Maxwell says it nicely, says, success without raising successors is a failure. And so I believe unless other people have benefited from my life, how can I call myself successful? And so I'll probably close with this. I think eternity perspective is to lay down your own, wants, desires, and agenda, and ensure that you help build other people in reaching, where they want to go and want to move to. Ultimately, it's to help people, have the perspective of Jesus Christ being our Lord and Savior, and that we will live with Him for eternity. But also for people that, are working within companies, it's to look at it from a different perspective, a long run, zooming out.
What I'm hearing, Pastor C, is that legacy for you is not about you. Surprise, guys. Legacy isn't about you. And I can attest to what Pastor Christo is saying. He is very much the person that asks the question, how can I be compassionate in this moment? I think if there's anything I've learned from you, it's recognizing that we need to be more compassionate. It's recognizing that everyone deserves compassion, and that modeling of compassion isn't just a nice thing. It's actually you're modeling what Jesus did. We had a conversation about this not too long ago. And legacy is just that. I think legacy is also probably, it's likened to, or dare I say it, it's likened to customer experience. Legacy is the feeling that you leave behind when people have dealt with you. Do you leave a wake behind you and it's just chaos? Or do you leave people feeling like they're bigger than they thought they were, like their potential is expanded? And I think when you leave the room, people feel bigger. And I always measure the way, and it's probably not nice to say, but I measured people by how I feel when I leave. That's the reality. So especially when it comes to leaders, there are leaders who I sit with and I walk away going, wow, I feel bigger, but not in a way that diminishes them. And then there are leaders where you leave and you're like, okay, I kind of feel like maybe I should just draw back. Maybe I should keep my mouth shut. What do I know? And definitely when I'm in this room with you and Dr. J, I feel bigger. I feel like anything is possible. I feel like there's more to be done. And I can honestly attest to that is how Pastor C lives. That's how he operates. That's not because he's on the podcast today, so this is what you see. That's who he is. That's the thing he creates and the people that he meets. Not just the clients, not just the people that he works with. That's just how he is. When you see him on a Saturday, going hunting or eating biltong or kicking the ball with little Christo, that's who he is. He makes people feel like anything's possible. And I think that's, for me, probably sense of legacy. Dr. J, you work in the world of identity. We spoke about it the other day. And just generally healing people in terms of past hurts, addressing the stuff so they get through it. We don't get over it, we get through it. And it's often said that real legacy isn't what we leave behind, but the things that we leave in people. So how do you nurture values that outline your presence in this space, in work, in community?
I think what's important is like you said, the word values, all right? We have to nurture the values in such a way that it outlives your presence. That's the whole point of legacy, is that your values need to outlive your presence. When I speak to my kids, and I said it before as well, is that I tell them always to lead with values and not with trends. Because in primary school, high school, university, actually life, it's so many times that adults exclude themselves from trends, but they follow them just as much as kids do. So we have to lead by values and not with trends. And how does that actually look like in real life? It looks like intention. It looks like the things that you do on purpose for purpose. It looks like response instead of reaction. I speak often about what I call the unhurried leader or the strategic leader. A strategic leader doesn't respond with reaction. He responds with he responds with a softer, more strategic response. That all comes down to values, and that anchors that you are grounded and in principles, and let me just say it, not popularity. You need to be grounded in principles, not popularity. That is what's important. And that's how you're going to, with values, outlive your physical existence or presence, as what I said earlier on. I mean, the world is just chasing relevance, but eternity is often overlooked. And yet that's so important. So when you lead with values, integrity, truth, compassion, like Pastor C, I see that with him often. Stewardship, Odette, I see that with you so strong always. Serving. You sow seeds that's going to grow even after you have left the room. It starts literally by being clear about what you stand for. And I think in a world that's so lost in identity, it's very hard to stand up for what you stand for and to actually know what you stand for. You have to consistently, intentionally, on purpose, embody what you stand for. It's not convenient, and it's neither going to be trending, and you have to understand that. And it comes with a cost. The thing with trends is, and because I work in social media, I know, trends attract attention. But value is what's going to build legacy, and that's what we're talking about. I often tell women that I work with is don't just be a presence, be a principle. And that actually takes what I say with intentionality one step further, because with intentionality, I speak about being present for your purpose. But I'm also just saying with that is don't just be a presence. Don't just be there. Be the principal. Be the person that people are looking at. The trends actually is going to change, but your values is what's going to transform people and ultimately legacies. Pastor C also speak about the ripple effect, but all these things create ripple effects in rooms that you've never entered and for the generations that you will never meet. That's what I love about legacy. If I think about this podcast, if I think about anything that I record, for me it's so powerful because I realize, hey, it's not for me. It's not even for the person that's listening to this podcast right now. It's for your family. It's for your children. It's for your children's children. It's going to echo into eternity. We are recording things now for the next generation. That's legacy. That's not trending. That's just us making a space and room for other people to enter into the room. I read a book many years ago of T.D. Jakes, and I spoke about this yesterday as well. I didn't even think about this in such a long time. But what he said is that the younger generation has the technology, the older generation has the knowledge, the skills, the wisdom, the experience. And in the middle, we have this massive gap. And the only way we're going to breach that gap is if we come together and the young teach the older the tech part of things, and the older, I want to say, transfers that knowledge, experience, and wisdom to the younger generation. And I feel that strongly as a mandate, even for us to be able to either, if you're in the middle, well, then we have to find the solutions so that we can bridge that gap. because otherwise there's so much wisdom that is going to go lost. So my short answer to your question, Odette, is we have to nurture our values that it outlives our presence for when we are no longer here.
You know, I like Pastor C and Dr. J, we are all writing books, and that's actually just because of Dr. J. Let's just be honest. She got us all sort of along this journey, and we're all along this journey, not because we think we are super duper awesome. That's really not the case, but because there's things that we need to work through. And I find writing a book is very therapeutic, actually, because you pore over things and you mull over stuff. And I know that I'm on the right track when, without having spoken to you or to Pastor C, we all talk the same stuff. Now, that could just be that we are too much in each other's space, but I don't think that's the case, because you guys live very different lives. For those of you unsure, I'm in Australia, they're in South Africa. For me, it's evening, for there it's morning. So if we are not in each other's space the whole time, that there is even an opportunity to be like, oh, what's happening over here? So it's not like nosy smurfers happening between the three of us. But I do feel like God always has a word for a time and a season, and he always releases the same word. So when it gets to, for example, at the end of the year, and Dr. Nikki brings the word for that year, I like to listen. They are my spiritual covering. They are my spiritual parents. I will follow them. So I listen to their message, and then I listen to the other messages of the other churches. And there is always a golden thread. God never contradicts himself. There's never anything different. And when I speak to you about legacy, about values, the same stuff that bubbles up in my spirit comes up. When I speak to Pastor C, the same stuff that bubbles in my spirit comes up. We use different words. We have different tones, and we have like a different atmosphere around those words. But it's the same golden thread, which is also why this podcast is so cool. Because if you're wondering if any of us are crazy, there is always counsel. There's wisdom in counsel, and I have the counsel of at least two very smart people. So no craziness happening here. I digress. Off topic, on point. You wanted to say something, Dr. Joe?
No, I was just listening to what you're saying. It's, and I can't agree more with the golden thread and the golden line that just goes right through. I think it also happens when community comes together, like-minded people. We build ourselves to build others. I think that's also part of legacy. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about community, is that it's long lasting and it outlives who you are as a person because it moves. It's a movement. Yeah.
Pastor C? This is evil fingers. So you're like,
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, what you value is what will be valuable to you. And, because all of us value people and value, what you instill in them, that's that golden thread. Just thinking as Dr. Janine was speaking about values and, what you leave behind, and, teaching the kids to lead with values and not just on trends. Just reminded of Jesus when he was about to go up into heaven. And he speaks to his disciples, and he says that, I will send you the Holy Spirit that will be your comforter, your helper. He will be with you. And he concludes that portion. He says, I will not leave you as orphans. I will not leave you as orphans. So somebody that has lost their parents, they have lost someone, not something. And so what has helped me is to frame the difference between legacy and inheritance. And it's quite possible that people might mess it up, because for me, inheritance is what you leave behind. But legacy is who you leave behind. Who is what you leave behind in them. Because that's what Jesus did. Jesus didn't give them silver and gold and, a platform. And he left in them the person of the Holy Spirit that will be their helper and their guide. And, as Romans 8 says, that those who are led by the Spirit of God will be the sons of God. And so we have this person that is helping us and leading us and guiding us. And so legacy for me it has to be all about that. It's what we leave behind in people. Build that values, because money will come and go. But the values and the character that you place within people, or that you carry, those are the things that will last, eternally. It's like when the Bible says that one day all of our works, will be refined by fire, and the wood, hay, and straw, is gonna vanish. But that what is gold and silver will be purified. And so it's to think about what are the things that I can leave within a person, that irrespective of time, irrespective of trends, irrespective of, countries, conditions, cultures, what will remain? And let's build that. Let's focus on that. And so building into people, you'll always have a return on that investment. And you'll never know how big that is, because you can impact one person that impacts a nation or a generation. Just as you mentioned, like, Dr. Janine's writing books, and, now so everybody else is writing books. It's not even about purposely encouraging that, but just as an outflow of her life, the people that's within her influence gets affected by that. And so legacy is about what you leave in people, where inheritance is what you leave for them. And absolutely go for it. Leave as much as you can if you want for your kids. But I know that more money is not going to help me more than what my dad placed in me. I had this interesting conversation, actually it was last week, with Neil, one of my friends, and my mom-in-law. And so we were just speaking about things that I want to build into Christo. And I said to them that if there was one thing that I wish my parents would have done different in my life, it was a certain, principle that I wish they would have taught me. And as I said that, the very next thing that dropped in my heart is, at the expense of what? So I wish my parents would have just taught me this one more principle, or, showed me this one more thing. At the expense of what? At the expense of, growing up in a house that served God. At the expense of growing up in a house that loved and placed family as a value. At the expense of, teaching me how to be a sportsman that does his best and always goes out to perform at his best. Being tenacious in what you're doing, at the expense of being a man of your word. Your word is your bond. What you say is what you do. And when I said that, I was like, leave that one thing. I can learn that from someone else. And sometimes I think we try to, be all things to all men, instead of saying, like, once again, what are these invaluable truths that I can deposit into somebody that will reflect into generations to come?
My question is, who are you raising up? It's so easy to say, and I'm not talking about us, because I know that we've got people we are constantly raising up. For you listening, who are you raising up? The principle is simple and it's threefold. It's you find somebody that's in a bigger room, higher position, more authority, better mentorship, and you pull from that person from the top. You share with the people on the same level as what you are. You learn from them. And then you find somebody that is in a lower level place in their life. It doesn't mean they are less than you as a person. It just means in a certain place, more about something than others. And you take that person and you raise them up. You pull them up, them to the same level. I was sitting in a room yesterday with Odette, and there were giants in the room. And I actually said to one of them afterwards, thank you for being teachable. And as I said that, I realized, but he's great in something else. She's great, really great at something else, but I'm really great at this. And therefore, I can take somebody from their level and pull them to mine in a certain thing. And then when you have people around you that recognizes that, that's no longer competition. It is like, who can I pull up? Where can I pull from? And we create this very strong pool of community and resources. That's how I believe we're going to breach that gap, Pastor C. It's who's up while you are still there. Because your life truly is the loudest message that you're ever going to preach, and you need to model that daily. You need to build these systems around your principles in your business, your family, like you said now, your community, because when you have structure, it literally reinforces sustainability. And that's what we're going for. Structure reinforces sustainability. So how's it going to keep going is when we put structures in place, and the structures are simple, like I said now. Learn from somebody at a higher level, share with the people at the same level, and pull somebody up to where you are. And if you stay rooted in those things, then we are builders of eternal value. And we don't just dream big, but we're literally digging deep. We are building big, and we are leaving that mark of distinction and expansion in the lives of other people.
Absolutely. And it's like you read my mind, because the question is, what are the building blocks for legacy-driven businesses? And as someone who loves systems and processes and structures, guys, don't dislike me for it. It is what it is. My life thrives on these things. So I thought about what are the things that helps businesses create legacy. And you mentioned it before, one of the keys, Dr. J, is that there's a clarity of purpose, not clarity of we need to make $10 million this year. No, it's not we driving for this value. It's what is our purpose? What is the mission that we are on to achieve that leaves an impact that's bigger than us? I said to the woman at the Sustain Her event now in July, it's interesting, and I knew this, but I saw it. You attract what you are, not what you deserve, not what you think you deserve, and not what you want. So the Sustain Her community here in the Hills are all women who are driven by purpose. If you speak to them, they will tell you about how they are longing to make an impact in some area of business, of life, or families, or whatever it is they do. And that's the one, probably the single most powerful thing that any business can have, is a clear purpose. We're not looking for another cool place to work. We all want to belong somewhere. We want to belong to something that's bigger than us. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to make $1 million just for the sake of it. And the people who do are empty. They are sad, and the money is like the facade over the reality of what's happening in their hearts. So the first is clarity of purpose. So ask yourself, does your provide every hire, every offering that you create, every person that you partner with, does it guide those decisions? If the answer is no, we've got a purpose when we started it and we haven't actually done something since then your purpose isn't clear and you're not being driven by your purpose. So we have to make sure that we have a clear purpose. Once we've got a clear purpose, we have to be consistent stewards. Legacy isn't something that gets built on highlight reels. We've spoken about this before. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagrammable, because you know what? That legacy is something that plays out 50, maybe 100 years after you're no longer here. There is no Instagram. I would be very surprised if Instagram survives that long. So it's not about here and now. It's about what happens after you. So it's built in the faithfulness of the ordinary things. I always say to my clients, boring business is good business. I know it sucks because you're like, I need an excitement. Okay, then go on a roller coaster. Boring business is good business. And the same is true. It's how you treat your team behind closed doors. I watched a documentary train wreck of the American Apparel clothing brand that was big when we were growing up. We didn't have it in South Africa, but I had heard it on song. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that man, wow, could you be so rude to your team? Could you be so ugly to people? I was like, what? And I'm South African, we're quite candid. It was just horrendous. And how this is now on display for the whole world to see. And he can't even deny it because there's video footage of it. We're in that age where people can stand and record you. So the question is, how are you treating your team when the doors are closed, when the pressure is on? Because like olives, under pressure produces olive oil. You under pressure produce. Enter what happens when you get angry. Enter what happens when the target is missed. Enter what happens when, oh, guys, we've got bills to pay, but the money's not enough. And that for me is like, wow, we've got to pay attention. Everything depends on you, and it's about your vision. So if you're building people, processes, and systems, you've got to build them to outlast you. It's about the generational thing that comes behind you. So when we think about eternal impact, that's what we need to think about. We need to think about multiplying what we've got, multiplying the people. Pastor C talks about multiplying people all the time. He talks about expanding their capacity. That means that we have a bowl, figuratively speaking, and that bowl can grow. How are you helping your team grow? How are you helping your family grow? How are you helping your friends grow? And even the people that are outside. We do this podcast because for me, it's about creating an impact. I may never meet you, but something I said, or something Dr. J said, or something Pastor C said is stretching the way that you're thinking. And we are lifting the glass ceiling for you so that you can reach higher level. That's multiplying impact. To me, it doesn't matter that I never meet you. It doesn't matter that I don't even know that you exist, because that's not why we're doing this. I am lifted my lid. It's about multiplying what I've got. The story about the talents is something that I often return to, and I actually did return to it just this week again. But it's about the master says, here's 5, here's 2, and here's 1, and each went on their own. And the interesting thing is that those who came back and multiplied what they had, he said, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful in the little, now step into the joy of your Lord. And that the one that did nothing, he says, you wicked and lazy servant. Wicked and lazy, please never use those words to describe me. No, thank you. But he also then said to the 2 who did multiply, step into the joy of the Lord. You will be master of much. They got the same benefit, but their capacity was different. The one had the capacity to double 5. The other one had the capacity to double 2, but they didn't have the same capacity. Yet the master said, step into the joy of the Lord. You will be the master of much. So I think it's important for us to understand that it's not about Dr. J is multiplying more than me and she's got it. It's not about that. We have capacities. And I love what you just said, Dr. J. You had people in the room that were like, wow. I mean, I was a little bit, for me, it was in the middle of the night. So nobody could tell I was starstruck. It's beautiful. And it is. Those people have tremendous capacities and they're sitting there because you are expanding their capacity in another area where they don't. So I always like to talk about the practical things. So 3 practical takeaways before we close. I would love for you to go and do an alignment audit. Those of you who don't know, I love the word alignment. I love alignment in business, alignment at home. Alignment is beautiful. So just take 15 minutes this week and think about one area of your business, whether it's your offer, your message, your team culture, and ask yourself, is this aligned to our ultimate purpose? Not the revenue goal, but the ultimate purpose. Why are we in business and are we aligned? If it's not aligned, you've got work to do. The second thing is create a stewardship habit. Choose one thing that you can faithfully, because the master said, well done, good and faithful servant. He was both good and faithful. So what can you faithfully improve every day over the next 30 days? I am a 6 Sigma consultant, and one of the things that I live by is just being 1% better today than I was yesterday. Because over that year, that 1% compounds, and what I have at the end of the year is more than 365% increase. So what is the one thing that you can faithfully go work on, go build a legacy on, go just be a little bit better today than you were yesterday for 30 days? If you start today, 30 days from now, that area will be transformed, guaranteed. And lastly, start multiplying. Identify one person, Dr. J said it. Find one person that you can pour into, that you can multiply. Whether it's a team member, maybe it's a mentee, maybe it's a partner, but teach them something that you would usually keep to yourself, because that's what multiplication is. Multiplication, stewardship, discipleship, it's about duplicating you. You know when someone has discipled someone, when you look at them and you're like, oh, you're exactly like so-and-so. That's multiplication. So you have to multiply the one thing that you would actually keep to yourself. Not because they're going to go and sell it. And if they do, so what? It doesn't matter. Like, you're multiplying someone else. The reward that you get at the end of this is far greater than what they could ever do. So go build something that is eternal, not just for the few, but for multiple people, and start with a decision to lead differently today. Dr. J, Pastor C, parting thoughts.
I couldn't agree more with you. I would say people over profit, purpose over, price points. That's what it comes down to me. If you want to build lasting legacy within an organization, there's a saying that says that there's many ways to skin a cat. I'm not sure where it comes from. I'm going to have a look. I don't know why anybody want to skin a cat, but using that analogy, there's multiple ways that you can leave a legacy. It's not my way, it's not your way, it's not either one of our ways. You have to pick, what works for you. I pick people over profit, purpose over price. So I think it's so important, that we don't forget the reason we started what we've been building. And if we look at, companies that maybe went astray or even, are oblivious today, nobody knows about them, is it possible that they erred in the wrong direction of their purpose, the initial attempt that they started? And so I think that those things are so important, is that, what are you chasing? What are you building? Because if you think about who are you building, you think with a different perspective, because it's no longer about me, but it's about that person and what would work best for that person to achieve whatever we equate success to. So that would be my closing thought. People over profit every day, every week.
I like that, Pastor C, and it reminds me of something I also speak about is impact-driven profit. Is not just profit for profit, but impact-driven. And that impact-driven profit is what builds legacy. And what I would encourage listeners today is to build strategic leverage for legacy. So simply what that means is it's getting more output with less input. It's more impact with less energy. And you will start to see when you start building strategic leverage or strategic leverage for legacy is that you will find that you are less tired because the stuff that you're actually putting into is like people say, don't you get tired? You've got so much to do. I'm like, no, you have no idea. It's the opposite. I'm energized because I'm busy with the right things. That's what I mean with build strategic leverage for legacy. So you're putting less in, but you're getting more out of it. You are making a bigger impact, but you are using less energy. So that would be my encouragement for you today is start getting your plan ready. Start building your legacy and your strategy with strategic leverage for legacy.
Beautiful. Today's conversation reminded me that eternity is not later. Eternity is now. And every choice we make, the way we speak, the way we serve, the way we build, the way we lead, it all echoes into eternity. So as we continue each on our own journey of becoming, may we ask ourselves, am I building something that will outlast me? Because really that's what it's about. Thank you very much, Dr. J and Pastor C, for your wisdom, insight that you share so openly and so generously every week that we meet. And thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us, for going on this journey with us. May your life and leadership be marked not just by success, but by eternal significance. Remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. And if this has impacted you, share it with somebody who you know needs to be impacted. Until next time, stay anchored, stay aligned, and keep becoming.